Welcome to Hope Lies Waiting. I'm Joy. In a few of my other videos, I've talked about how I feel that one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my life was the lesson regarding forgiveness. And I feel it's important to go ahead and make that a topic for a video here. A lot of people don't understand what forgiveness actually is or the powerful purpose that it has in our lives. Forgiveness is not saying that you condone the other person's actions. It is not saying that you feel that the other person should be exempt from the consequences of their actions. What forgiveness is the release of the anger and resentment that you have acquired as a result of the other person's actions. To let go of the burden that the resentment and anger have created in your life so that you're free to go forward and live your life fully with a lot less stress than what you have been dealing with. As an example, the relationship between myself and my parents. Because of a therapist that I had about 25 years ago, I learned to forgive my parents for their actions that they had chosen to engage in as I was a child growing up that had a very negative impact on me. It was like a weight lifting off of me. I never tried to say, well, my parents were justified in all those things that they did to me and my siblings. There were consequences to their actions. It wasn't easy to do, of course. There was a lot of conditioning in childhood that I had to overcome in the way that children in general tend to be taught that, their parents are there to love them and only do what's in their best interest, etc. When, unfortunately, from the experiences of far too many children, we know that that's not always true. But I did learn to let go of that resentment and anger I was holding, and I felt better for it once it was gone. You may be saying to yourself right now, why would I forgive someone who's done terrible things to me? Why do they deserve to be forgiven? And again, that's part of what people don't understand. Forgiveness is not for the sake of the other person. Forgiveness is for your sake. Forgiveness is to relieve yourself of the burden of clinging to those hated memories, of tying yourself to that person indefinitely. It just drags you down. You forgive, you move on. If you need to make the statement to make it clear to them that no, you're not condoning their actions or think their actions were acceptable in any way, that no, you aren't saying that they should not face the consequences of their actions, that might be a good thing. See if they're willing to own up to what they have done and accept responsibility and the repercussions of that responsibility. But at least forgive for your own sake. It really does release so much stress, so much anxiety, so much tension from yourself when you can sit back and say, I choose to forgive. I think forgiveness is especially important right now in these times when the world is in so much upheaval, when so many of us are concerned about the future of America if we're Americans. I see so many people out there getting upset at MAGA for their choice to put the current president into power, even though the president had warned all of us that he was going to do certain things, and in fact, he did those things, despite many members of MAGA thinking those things would never happen, or at least if they happened, it would never happen to them. But sometimes you have to put yourself into that other person's shoes. How were they raised? What environment did they grow up in? That was the sort of thing that led me to be able to forgive my parents, because I had an understanding of the conditions that they grew up in. In the case of MAGA, a lot of them are in rural areas of the United States, while technically they may have an education, a lot of times that education is very biased and one-sided to fit what their local community accepts, as opposed to giving a broader range of viewpoints from all different sides of a topic. They've been raised in churches that have chosen to cling to a book that was created by people who wanted their share of the power of the Roman Empire. I'm referring to the Bible if you're not aware of the history of the Bible. They really didn't get exposed to other people, other ways of thinking, anything like that. When you're raised in a very narrow, one-sided environment filled with bigots and people who have no empathy, you're more likely to turn out to be the same as they were. It's a shame that it's taking the sad state of the nation to start bringing some of them to their senses and realizing that all these things that they've been getting told for all these years, they aren't in their best interest. That in itself is a harsh lesson for them. Not bringing yourself to be able to forgive them, considering the circumstances in which they were raised, doesn't help things at all. It holds them down from becoming better people. It holds you down from going on with your life. Instead of reviling the majority of MAGA, if they admit that they have made a mistake and they want to help change things for the better, work with them. You still don't have to condone their past choices. You don't have to say, okay, we forgive you of, your responsibility in the matter so that you don't have to face consequences. But instead of clinging to the resentment and anger, at least treat them neutrally if you can't bring yourself to be willing to work with them to help them see things in a better light. I've seen a lot of people on social media making posts saying, "We told you so. We told you all of this before the election even happened. We knew exactly what the outcome was going to be if Trump became president. You should have listened to us and voted differently." Well, it's easy enough to say, but considering the way they grew up, the environment they live in, what makes you think they even saw those comments in social media before the election? In most cases, I'm certain most of them hadn't at all. It's not to say that there aren't some of those who call themselves MAGA that were very much aware of Trump's likelihood that he was going to do the things that he said he was going to do and what the likely outcome of those things would be, and they didn't care because they either knew for a fact or they assumed that those things would not affect them. Keep your distance from those people. I would still ask you to forgive them for your own sake, but if you just can't bring yourself to do it, at least keep your distance from them and don't hold things over their head. Instead, work with those who are willing to make changes for the better, for the future of our families, our communities, our states, our nation, for the world. Holding on to the anger and resentment doesn't take us anywhere. It's focusing on the blame game instead of focusing on what has to get done to fix things. Yes, it can be extremely difficult to bring yourself to say, I forgive this person that has done me wrong. I've been there myself. I've had issues with my parents. I've had issues with other people. Even after I had learned the power of forgiveness, there were certain things that happened in my life where I just could not bring myself to forgive the other people involved right away. And that's normal. Sometimes you just can't forgive right away because you're too close to the trauma of the incident and whatever impact it has had on your life. Give yourself a couple of months and then ask yourself, what do I gain by staying angry over this? What do I gain by carrying the resentment? Chances are you're not going to gain anything except for some extra baggage in your life that you're stuck dragging around. Do yourself a favor. Forgive. If you feel the need, make it clear. The forgiveness is not to condone their actions or to say that you felt their actions were acceptable in any way. The forgiveness is not to say, I don't think that you should have to face any consequences for your actions. The forgiveness is to say, I am not going to let your choices hold me back from trying to create a better future. And that's the important part. So doing what we need to do to create better futures for ourselves. So while I'm taking a break to think up a topic for my next video, I wish you all peace, love, and joy. Please take care.